Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Bhakti Mateus. Can you open this door a little bit? Get some air in here. Open it more. Hopefully we get air without noise. Here we get sound. Yeah, we had all kinds of fans in here, but then we got the air conditioning, but we never put it on. We just opened the doors. And anyway, yeah, we got air. We got air. And summer's almost over. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 26th day of August 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're beginning chapter 8 entitled Attaining the Supreme, page 345. Oh, Eddie, don't put that on the floor. You know what to do. Touch it to your head. There you go. Now you're not.
Oh, geez. This is the story of my life.
Yeah. Get. All right. There you go. All right. Don't worry. You can atone for it. We'll give you a good program. Okay. All right. So text 1, chapter 8. Kim Tad Brahma Kimadhyatmam. All right, start over again. Arjuna Uvacha Kim Tad Brahma Kimadhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchate. All right, I'll chant a couple of times, and then we'll have 3 from the men and 3 from the women. And then we'll have Bhakti Chad. Okay. Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchate. Arjuna Uvacha Kim Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchate. Arjuna Uvacha Kim Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchate. Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchate. Who wants to try? Ferdy, try it. Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchate. Prabhu, at the end, you can do. You want to try? Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchate. Ladies. Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kimuchate. Who's next on its side? Go ahead, Asha. Arjuna Vacha Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Daivam Kimuchate. If you want, you can sit on the bench. Just move that over a little bit. It's up to you. All right, we'll get you some books. Just we have 1 book left. Maybe we're out of books. Okay. So I'll read the word by words myself. Oh, wait a minute. Dr. Chad, you there?
Arjuna Vacha
Arjuna Vacha.
Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatma
Kim Tad Brahma Kamadhyatmam.
Kim Kama Purushottama
Kim Karma Purushottama.
Adibhutam Chakim Proktam
Haribhutam Chikim Proktam.
Adidaivam Kim Uchite.
Adidayabam Kimuchite. It's pretty amazing. You know, he's on the moon.
Hare Krishna.
Nebraska. Might as well be the moon. When are you coming back?
A week or two.
A week or two. Okay.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
He's in Nebraska for medical. Yeah. All right, I'm reading the word by words. Just read along silently. Arjuna Vacha, Arjuna said, Kim what tat, that Brahman. Kim what adhyatmam, the self. Kim what karma, fruitive activities. Purusha Uttama, O Supreme Person. Adibhutam, the material manifestation. Cha, and Kim what proktam is called. Adidaivam, the demigods. Kim what uchite is called. Translation. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Now, just before I read the purport, this is coming from the last two verses of the previous chapter. He's asking, Arjuna is asking all these questions, and Krishna wants to explain these things in detail. Purport. In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers different questions from Arjuna, beginning with, what is Brahman? The Lord also explains karma, fruitive activities, devotional service, and yoga principles, and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the Supreme Absolute Truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In addition, the living entity, the individual soul, is also called Brahman. Arjuna also inquires about Atma, which refers to the body, the soul, and mind. According to the Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to the mind, the soul, body, and senses also. Arjuna has addressed the Supreme Lord as Purushottama, Supreme Person, which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to the Supreme Person, knowing him to be the Supreme Authority, able to give definitive answers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, just to, as I mentioned, we'll just go read the translations to the previous two verses, the last two verses in chapter 7. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman. See, that's the first question. What is Brahman? They're actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. So there's also karma. Adhyatmam, karma, like that. And then the last verse, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation, of the demigods, and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So this is Adibhutam, Adidaivam, and Adiyagya. And these will be explained in a few minutes. So, what is Brahman? In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described that the absolute truth, meaning the source of everything. Let's actually go first to the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta means the end of knowledge, the supreme knowledge. And I always like to point out Srila Prabhupada's name. The founder Acharya, his name is Bhakti Vedanta. He was given that name. And which means that the end of all knowledge culminates in bhakti. Culminates in, what is bhakti? Bhakti is loving devotional service to God constantly, which is the final goal for the soul. We learn from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita at the beginning that we are not actually these bodies. This is the first element of knowledge. That although we identify with the body, if somebody says, who are you? Well, I'm a 31-year-old male living in San Diego, whatever. I'm not 31 anymore, actually. But, you know, you give your age, it's a good thing that you go through a red light or a stop sign, the cop stops you, says, license and regulation, and they look at that license, what's on there? That's your material designation. You got your name, you got your address, you got a picture, right? Height, weight, everything like that. So, but we're not that. The first lesson, often the first verse that a devotee who's living in the ashram is cultivating, the shlokas, will memorize is this 13th verse of the second chapter, and I'll share it with you now. Krishna says, Dehinosmin yata dehe, kaumaram yovanam jara, tata dehantara praptir, dhiras tatra namuyati. So dehina means the one who is occupying the body. The body is called the deha, and the dehina is one who's in the body, you see. So this is the first thing. What do you mean in the body? What's in the body? The soul, the spirit, the consciousness, right? We all know we have a mind, and we can think. So we're different from a stone. What's different between us and the stone? The essential thing is consciousness. And you can see so many different species, even these trees. They're very rudimentary conscious, but there's a soul in there, in every tree. That's why it's growing. And certainly the animals, you can see they're conscious and they're aware of birds and all these things. So we have different bodies, and it's a very special body. The human body is very, very important, because only in this body do we have the developed intelligence to inquire into these ultimate questions. And now, who am I? Why am I suffering? You see? What's the meaning of life? You see? And then if you're fortunate enough to come in contact with authoritative answers to these, then our beginning of our path, because it's called Bhakti Marga. Marga is a path. It means it's just like anything. If you want to develop any kind of skill or reach a goal, then there's a path from here to there. You have to do certain things, oftentimes study, get a degree in college, whatever it may be, right? And along the way, pass the test. So similarly, there's a marga, there's a path of bhakti, in which we're not trying to achieve anything material, but we're trying to achieve a transformation of consciousness. So that when we finally leave this body, and all of us know, although we don't like to think about it, that death is going to come. But the wonderful thing that you learn is we don't die. That death is actually just of the body, but we're not the body. So what happens? What determines what our next life is going to be? This is axiomatic in spiritual life in India, that we have a future life and we have a previous life. And in this life, we're experiencing the results of our good and bad activities. In English, the word karma, right? In English, I'm sure it's in the dictionary by now. It doesn't mean activity, it means the result of activity, right? What you good karma. You do something nice for someone, then it comes back to you, okay? So that's a fact according to the Vedas, according to the Bhagavad Gita, that the activities we perform in this life are going to determine our next life. Just like in this life, forget about life after birth, but in this life, the activities you do when you're young, that's why the parents, responsible parents, they send their kids to school, they often study, don't play all the time, get off the computer, get off the phone. Now, in my days, we didn't have that, just turn the TV off. And study, because this will determine if you can get into a good college, get a degree, and become successful in life. So clearly what we do now, but in the Bhagavad Gita, we understand, yes, and it determines what your destiny is in the next life, because we're not the body. I made a little poem, Every body dies. Think of it this way. You have to, every space, body dies. Who can deny it, right? So every body dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's the Hare Krishna movement. So the word Brahma, now in the Vedanta Sutra, it begins with this, the sutras mean little aphorisms. Here we have a shloka. It took us a good 30 seconds to chant the shloka. But the Vedanta Sutra is little aphorisms, but they're filled with meaning. So the first one is Tato Brahma Jigyasa. 3 words, very, very important. Ata means now, therefore. The now meaning, now that you're a human being, you should inquire into Brahman. That's the first thing. What is Brahman? So Brahman has broad meaning. Brahman in Sanskrit means the great. You know, that's the basic meaning of it. But it comes in the when you're in the context of the Bhagavad Gita and then the other wisdom books, then it means the source of everything, where everything came from. Where did not only did we come from, but where did this whole world come from? So it's a very important concept. But it's not a person. The Supreme Brahman, the Param Brahma, that's the Supreme Person. That's Krishna. That's the word for Krishna. So what is Brahman? Then what is Adhyatman? Adhyatma is the self. Atma means self. It means the spirit soul. It can also mean the body, the senses, the mind, or the intelligence in certain contexts. But here it means the soul. So what is the source of everything? Who are we? What is the soul? And then what is karma? What is activity that produces the result? You see? So this, and then he has this other two things, Adhyatmam, Adibhutam, and Adidaiva. So I'm just going to, on the basis of those words, I'm going to explain another concept, is that because who are we? Why are we suffering? Why do we have to suffer at all? You know, why can't I be happy all the time? So in the Vedic culture, Vedic literature, there is a division of the different kinds of sufferings that we go through, according to the cause. So the first one is Adhyatma. We all know these, we just don't know the name. Adhyatma means there's nothing external, obviously, that's causing you to suffer, but it's all internal. It could be your own body, it could be your mind. Like today I was chanting my japa, and suddenly I had a pain in my tooth over here. I said, oh God, do I have to go to the dentist? You know, I'm chanting, and it came again, you know. But now it's gone. So it wasn't much suffering. But at the time, it was distracting, you know. But sometimes the body can just, you know, it's so much suffering. You have to take it as acetaminophen or whatever, you know. So that's obviously one. And then there are, that's adi-atmic, means the self. Adi-bhautic means other living entities that are causing you suffering. Prabhupada gave the example in one lecture, such as bed bugs, because you may have had experience that in India, you know, you're sleeping very I haven't had bed bugs in a while. But we've all experienced that. I always give the reference of when I was a kid, maybe 16, 17. I got into reading existential literature. And I think with John Paul Sartre, he wrote a book called, what was it called? No Exit. You know, pretty depressing. And I read, the only thing I remember that book is this one line, hell is other people. Can you imagine, you know? Not very positive. So in Sanskrit, actually, other devotees are heaven, you know, you just hear and chant like we're all together. So, but we may all have that experience of other persons are causing us so much suffering, right? And then is Adi-Daivik. These are, just think of, you know, God, I read about this sandstorm that hit Phoenix. Did you see that? It looked like from the Sahara Desert or something. Huge sandstorm about 100 feet high, just blowing in and blowing out. That's Adi-Daivik. Now, I used to visit my friend in Florida twice a year in the Alachua. We have a big community there, the biggest actually community in the United States of devotees. There's hundreds of devotees who live there. Many of them are old Prabhupada disciples. And Alachua is right near Jacksonville. It's within maybe half an hour drive, in the middle of the state. But you remember last year when those two big, powerful hurricanes hit there? And I was following my friend, oh boy, it looks like it's heading right for you, you know? And luckily, both, one of them, the first one went up and hit North Carolina. You remember that? There was a lot of damage. But it was going straight for, you know, Jacksonville and going to strike him. And then it went north. And so it didn't hit him directly. The other one was going straight, and then it went south. And it didn't, so Krishna protected him. But the thing is that these are always giving us misery or threatening to give us misery. Just like now it's getting a little cooler, right? So San Diego, why is it so popular? Because the weather, you know, at least it used to be now, but now it's but basically this season was very mild. You know, you read about, oh, it's so freezing in, you know, different parts of the country. But here it was 65. Oh, that's pretty cold. Let me put something on. When I first came here, I came in '89. I've been here 36 years now. And I came from Miami. Now, Miami is a destination, especially in the winter. You know, a lot of people visit Miami. But I was living there all year round, and I came in July, and it was so hot over there and humid, you know. I came here, it was like every day, 74, 75. This was before climate change hit. You know. And wow, this is great, you know, it was perfect weather. And it reflects. And why do people, they come here, they visit Balboa Park, the zoo, you know, it's a big thing. Somehow. And then last year, was it last year, we had the threat of a hurricane? You remember that? Hurricane's coming. I said, really, you know? So I stayed back, I didn't go to the temple one day, I'm looking out it was drizzling. There was no wind. What happened to the hurricane? I wasn't complaining. Anyway, but Adidaivik miseries, we can see, you know, then there's the question, is it really Adidaivik if it's all caused by, you know, fossil fuels heating the atmosphere, and now the heat, and then so much rain and everything. So it's Adidaivik in its form, but it seems to be also caused by Adi-atmic. So these are three different types of suffering. And the process of Krishna consciousness, the yoga process, is meant to train us so that we can live a life that's ultimately free of these miseries, or if they happen, we can tolerate them easily. They don't throw us off, you see, and make us become depressed. Thanks for coming, even for 10 minutes. We're good. Thank you. Hare Krishna. And so, Adi-atmic miseries, Adi-daivik misery. It would be great if we could nullify all those, you see. And that's what Krishna consciousness promises. Because if you're situated in your spiritual self, spiritual body, then you're beyond these three miseries. That's the spiritual world. This is the promise. And so then there's those, and then there's the four that are part of these: birth, old age, disease, and death. Yeah, this is mentioned. There's, in the 13th chapter, Krishna lists about 20 elements of knowledge that will help us in our quest for enlightenment. And one of those points of knowledge is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Doshana, Darshanam. To keep in the forefront of your mind the ills, you know, the suffering of birth, old age, disease, and death, which we go through again and again. We've forgotten. This is Krishna's blessing. He says in the 15th chapter, Sarva Sachamani Sanavishtam Mattak Smatir Jnanam Apohanangsha. As the super soul in the heart, this is a very important understanding that Krishna is with us at all times. When we have pangs of conscience and things like that, this is the super soul trying to say, hey, you shouldn't have done that, you know. So he's there. And he's giving us remembrance, and like the animals or the birds say, you know. A bird is born, he hatches out of the egg, you know, and he's trying to flap his wings a little bit. After a few days, you know, I don't know if they push him out of the nest or whatever, but he learns to fly. He can fly. Where is he getting that knowledge from? Krishna in the heart. Call it instinct, you see. So okay, I forgot the verse that we're going to quote. But oh yeah, so birth, old age, disease, and death. So Krishna gives us forgetfulness. Can anyone here tell me what their last birth was? Any of the different details? But we know he had one. Right. It's been a while. We certainly don't want to remember how he died, right? I mean, probably unpleasant in many ways. How about the last 50 deaths? You want to remember that? No. So that's Krishna's blessing. You see, he's giving us. Otherwise, we'd have a massive case of PTSD. 100 different, oh God, I wish I could forget that one. So we forget that. But Krishna in the book said, no, you should think of it. We don't want to go through it again and again and again and again. I mean, this is the Buddhist thing, how to get free from the samsara, right? Samsara, I'm sure it's an English word by now. That's birth. I like to put them in order. Birth, old age, disease, and death. You know. So we all have to go through that. We may die young, but you know that's still death. But we want to try to make this our last death. You see, because that's the whole point. Is that if we attain pure Krishna consciousness, then we can leave this world, which is the material world, which is a temporary, you know, and we can go to the eternal abode of God, the kingdom of God. We all belong there. We're exiles. We don't belong here. So Krishna consciousness is a systematic way, and it's the most practical in this age. Is centered on the chanting of this holy name. You don't charge, it's free, and it's the greatest mantra in all the Vedas. And I'll quote the Vedas to prove it. In the Vedas, there's a Upanishads. You may have heard the Upanishads. This is another number of category of books that were written by Vyasadeva. And we have one of those that's called the Isha Upanishad. It's more about God in it than some of the others. But this is not the Isha Upanishad. This is called the Kali Santarana Upanishad. Now, Kali is the age that we live in. The Vedas divide the ages into four, just like 4 seasons. And this Kali Yuga, Kali means quarrel. Have you noticed that there's always some fight going on? Big or small, in our lives, personal lives or whatever, or threat of fight. So that's Kali, quarrel and dissension and all these things. So, Kali Santarana means that which delivers you from the age of Kali, from all of the evils of the present age. Even if you continue to live here, you can live, in a different consciousness, you're not affected so much. So here's the 2 verses from this Kali Santarana Upanishad. The first you know already, right there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Nam, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam. Natak Padataropaya Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. The second one means that these 16 names, Shodashakanam, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam. Nashanam means to destroy, and Kalmasha means the evils, all of the bad stuff that we know happens. If you turn on the news, you'll see what Kali Kalmasha is all about. So, Nashanam, this destroys it for us. We may continue to live here, but we won't be affected so much by it. We'll be transcendental, our consciousness will be transcendental. So, Kalikama Natak Parataropaya Sava Vedeshu Drishyate. You can search through all the Vedas, you won't find a more efficient means of destroying these Kali Kalmasha than these 16 names. And there it is, free. Just like all thousands you have to pay for health insurance and all these medicines and all these drugs. To mitigate Kali, the Adhyatmik, Adhibhautik, Adhidaiv. Just chant Hare Krishna. Truly, it is a very powerful mantra. It consists of 3 words, Hare, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. So Hare is a vocative form addressing Hara, which means the goddess of fortune, or in this context, it means Srimati Radharani. Now, those of you who can, next Sunday is the birthday of Radharani. This Sunday? Okay, we're at Tuesday. In my vocabulary, next Sunday means the next time Sunday comes around. Unless you happen to be in Saturday night, then you'd say, okay, this Sunday. Anyway, 31st of August. And it's a very sweet holiday because this is the appearance of Radharani, and she is the personification of love of God and compassion also. If those of you who can stay for the arati, I highly recommend it, coming up in about 20 minutes. 15. And you'll see, if you look closely at Radharani, she's the lady on the left, Krishna's on the right with the flute, and she's got her hand up like this. You see? Now this is a mudra. Even in ordinary parlance, this means something. But also means like, hold off, okay? This is not what we're talking about. This means, don't worry. Everything will be all right, you see? Because she's a personification of compassion and love and kind-heartedness. And she is the supreme servant of Krishna. And she serves him with the most varieties and intensity of love, you see. I'm not going to get into too many details. But, when we chant Hare, Hare Krishna, we're calling out to Radharani and to Krishna, please engage me in your service. Please enlighten me. Please, bless me so that I can become successful in my quest for enlightenment and my quest for going back to Godhead. And truly, the life of devotion, as we saw personified by Srila Prabhupada. I was fortunate to be initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1973, and as I was recounting at the breakfast table this morning, 2 years later, we have 2 initiations, actually, you can get. The Brahman initiation, which shows that you can go on the altar and you chant mantras. I have a thread, you may see the thread here. That I received directly from Prabhupada in Vrindavan in 1975. That was my one and only one-on-one with Srila Prabhupada. but it's etched in my memory. I feel very blessed with that. And since that time, since '73, I've been working on these books. I wasn't the main editor at all in this book, but I did go over it and did proofreading and so forth. And many of the books I had handed. So that's been very rewarding, fulfilling. So anyway, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Now Krishna, of course, is Krishna himself, and this is one of the inconceivable things, because there's a lot of inconceivable stuff that you'll come across in Krishna consciousness. That God is present in His name. If He's all powerful, why not? He can do that, right? And even ourselves, if you know somebody and you hear their name, then all of a sudden you remember so much about them, what they look like, what they did, right? In other words, even on mundane level, it's kind of like that. Otherwise, of course, now does anyone read novels anymore? Or they just okay? But if a really good novel, on a material plane, it will evoke the experience. You'll feel you're right there, right? That's good. So that's the power of sound. But the spiritual sound, because the Spirit is really there, and Krishna is so powerful, He gives us access to Him through His name. This is the primary, in this age especially. So we should take advantage of that. It's not difficult to chant. I used to chant 2 rounds a day when I started. I had a job, wake up early and chant. Of course, I would also chant on my drive in the car, and when I got to the hospital, I was still chanting. Trying to cure the patients with the Hare Krishna mantra. I had a little success. I won't get into that. But it's a very powerful mantra. So that's the primary means of advancement, and also doing what we're doing right now. This book is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Bhagavad Gita. Before this, you've seen this one, but I read my first Bhagavad Gita was maybe about 100 pages. This one is almost 1,000 pages. Why? Because all the explanation and all Prabhupada giving us a chance to chant these mantras. Every one of these verses is Krishna speaking, you see. And so it's important even to try, even if you can't do it, to learn how to chant these mantras. But the main thing is, of course, the purports, the Prabhupada's explanation. So he's explaining as he did there, and then we didn't do 2 yet, did we? All right, why don't we go on, because we'll do at least 2. Adiyagya katam kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayana kale chakatam geyosi niyatatma bihi. Who is the Lord of sacrifice, and how does He live in the body, O Madhusudan? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Purport. Lord of sacrifice may refer to either Indra or Vishnu. Vishnu is the chief of the primal demigods, including Brahma and Shiva. And Indra is the chief of the administrative demigods. Both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped by yajna performances. But here, yajna means sacrifice. But here, Arjuna asks, who is actually the Lord of yajna, sacrifice, and how the Lord is residing within the body of the living entity. That's the supersoul I mentioned before. Arjuna addresses the Lord as Madhusudana, because Krishna once killed a demon named Madhu. Actually, these questions, which are of the nature of doubts, should not have arisen in the mind of Arjuna, because Arjuna is Krishna conscious devotee. Therefore, these doubts are like demons. Since Krishna is so expert in killing demons, Arjuna here addresses him as Madhusudana, so that Krishna might kill the demonic doubts that arise in Arjuna's mind. Now, the word priyana kale in this verse is very significant, because whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. Priyana kale means the end time. Priyana means end, and kale means time. It means death. This particular body ends. Arjuna is very anxious to know of those who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. What should be their position at that final moment? At the time of death, all the bodily functions are disrupted, and the mind is not in a proper condition. Thus disturbed by the bodily situation, one may not be able to remember the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Kulashekar, a great devotee, prays, "My dear Lord, just now I am quite healthy, and it is better that I die immediately so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet." The metaphor is used because the swan, a bird of the water, takes pleasure in digging into the lotus flowers, Its sporting proclivity is to enter the lotus flower. Maharaj Kulashekar says to the Lord, "Now my mind is undisturbed and I am quite healthy. If I die immediately thinking of your lotus feet, then I am sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. But if I have to wait for my natural death, then I do not know what will happen, because at that time the bodily functions will be disrupted, my throat will be choked up, and I do not know whether I shall be able to chant your name. Better let me die immediately." Close quote. Arjuna questions how a person can fix his mind on Krishna's lotus feet at the time of death. So now comes a little of my own experience all these years. Somehow or other, because I have a fairly decent voice, I guess, a lot of devotees, I've been here so long, at least, I don't know, 6 or 7 devotees passed away here while I was here. And oftentimes they asked me to come and chant at that time. Because as Kulashekar was expressing, you can imagine, I used to work in a hospital as an inhalation therapist. I saw so many people die without any Krishna consciousness. And it's always very traumatic. But most of the time, if they've been in there for a while, they're sedated, which is the worst thing. It means that your consciousness is not, you can't control. But that's what it is in the material world. But in the spirit, devotees who may also be in pain, you see, but they want to be surrounded by other devotees who are chanting, or Prabhupada's, so many recorded kirtans going on, so that they can think of Krishna at the time of death. Because as we will learn in this chapter in a few verses, maybe not tonight, but next time, the thought that predominates your mind at the time of death determines your next birth. Now, it's true that there's so much disturbance. So how can we remember Krishna at the time of death? Well, we have to be practiced, you see. And if you're surrounded by devotees chanting Hare Krishna, that's a big help. And so I remember so many instances in hospitals, and the devotees, they're ready to go. And so we had one instance with this devotee named Radhanath, not Radhanath Swami, but Radhanath Das. And he was a devotee here. He was amazing. He would go out and distribute books in parking lots. He was on a wheelchair, and he would go out and he would distribute like that. Balaram Prabhu, our president here, got the first book from Radhanath. So finally, the point came, and he called me up. He had some kind of problem. He was in the hospital, and they told him, actually, this is not fatal. You can survive this, but you'll have to be on the breathing machine all the time. Someone will have to monitor that. And he said, forget that. I'd rather go. So he called me, can we do it Friday? I said, no, I'm flying off to Alatra on Friday morning. All right, let's do it on Thursday night. So we told everybody, and we all gathered in the hospital room in big kirtan. And Rohini, who was visited here, Balaram's mother, they both got initiation at the same time. And Balaram's mother in Krishna Lila is named Rohini. That's why she got the So I remember her, I told her when she came here, she was so emotional because they had received that book, but that started the Krishna consciousness from Radhanath. He took the trouble to go out there, and they got. So he said, "Oh, thank you so much, Radhanath Prabhu," like that. And so many others who I had one time. This one devotee, I was chanting japa here in the temple, and. Or maybe it was in class or something. Yeah, a class had just begun. Because Prabhupada had his garland on, just like he has now. See, he has the garland on. So I get a call on the cell phone, I think, and then so-and-so devotee is leaving his body in this hospital, which is driving distance from here. Can you please come and bring a garland? The only garland I could see was Prabhupada's garland, so I prayed, Prabhupada, let us take this garland. I drove, and I took like a route that wasn't the quickest route, so I came, oh my God, I hope I didn't miss it. I ran up there with the garland, and there was a devotee named Kanka, who had lived many years. She's now staying up near ISV, which is in San Francisco, near San Francisco. And she was a nurse. She was a qualified nurse, and she was already standing there with her hand on the, here, is he still alive? So I rushed in, we put the garland on, and I chanted. 2 minutes later, he was gone. It was like he was waiting for that garland, So that was a moving thing, And But and then there was one other devotee, and he had all his he had children who had scattered. They were all around the country, but they all flew in, and we were there, and I was chanting, and it was a whole thing. And so that's to help you remember. And Prabhupada showed himself. He in 1977 he departed. He was in Vrindavan, the most auspicious place, surrounded by devotees. Famously, our own Rajendra Nandana, who passed at the beginning of COVID time. He was there. And there's actually, I think, a movie of it. And it was chanting, and then Prabhupada departed in that, as he wanted. So that's success in life, to leave Krishna, this body absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. And that's the most prominent thought, and that'll take you back to the spiritual world. Now what's the advantage there? Is that there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no old age, death. Every day is a new, fresh adventure with Krishna in your religion relationship. What were you going to ask? Get a mic, because we have more people out.
So is it contrary to the practice to take sedation when a person is passing away? And then my second question would be, have you ever seen that conflict with medical advice?
No, but the devotees, who are serious, it's not that, they may take something, but they don't want to cover, they want to go out, basically. You want to be able to be alert at that time, so that you can, decide to think of Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. So it's you're not going to, I mean, if they're screaming in agony, then, of course you'll give it something. But it's entirely up to the person himself. The point is you want to be conscious. You want to be conscious. That's the first thing. And devotees themselves will tell you, okay, don't, because they don't want to have the darkness that comes with heavy sedation. You won't feel the pain, but you won't be thinking of Krishna either. So better to have some pain and end all pain forever. That's the thing. Because it's up to the patient, it's up to the devotee. But I've always seen that no, they just want to be absorbed in that hearing of the holy name and chanting if possible. Okay, so should I go on? All right. So Krishna now answers what is all these different things. And now he's answering. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavo Dhyatmamuchyate Bhuta Bhavo Dvapakaro Visarga Karma Sangitaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. Purport. Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Para-Brahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. Constitutional position versus the position in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the Lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. In the Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Para-Brahman. The living entity, the Jivatma, takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter, and sometimes he identifies himself with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. In material nature, he may take a body from any of 8,400,000 species of life. But in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he is manifested sometimes as a man, sometimes a demigod, an animal, a beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices, yajna. But when his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. Man means human being. This process is called karma. The Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offerings are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, the clouds, the earth, man, and woman. And the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer on the moon, rain, grains, and semen. Don't ask me to explain that paragraph. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Impersonalist commentators on the Bhagavad Gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of jiva in the material world, and to substantiate this they refer to chapter 15, verse 7 of the Gita. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord, Achyuta, never falls. The name Achyuta means never falls. Therefore, this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that in the Vedic literature, Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from Para-Brahman, the Supreme Lord. So, Uchade. So Krishna is explaining in some detail here the process of how our interaction with the material world, if we don't have this direction and knowledge, it will keep us bound to the material world. And the way the bondage, we know instinctively how that bondage is. It's the things that we're attracted to, the things that we want to enjoy in this material world. And this is like the theme of this Bhagavad Gita course. We're at the verse. Yehi sangsbharjita bhoga dukkha yonaye vate adyantabantan kote anateshu ramate buddha. You probably know this verse by now. What this means is, as Krishna says, 5th chapter, text 22, intelligent persons do not participate in sense gratification, the pleasures that come from the senses contacting the objects. O Arjuna, he's speaking to Arjuna, such pleasures are the sources of all misery, and they have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not take their pleasure there. So then when the next question is, well, how do they take their pleasure? That's in the previous verse. He says, Bhaya sparsheshu asaktatma vindityatmaniya sukham sab brahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayam ashnute. Notice that word Brahma is there again. Sab brahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayam ashnute. Now that last phrase, I'm pretty sure you didn't understand, except a few who know this verse from my chanting it about 40 times in the last 2 weeks. And that is, the word Brahma is there again. So, Bhaya sparsheshu, external, the contact, the senses, you see. Asaktatma is not attracted. This is the realized soul, the yogi, bhakti yogi. Bhaya asaktatma, vindatyatmaniya sukham, he or she is enjoying the pleasure within the heart, you see. How? Sab brahma yoga yuktatma. Because the atma, the soul, is linked. The word yoga means to link, just like yoke, you can think of it. Yoga, Sab Brahma Yoga is linked to the Brahman, and that means the Supreme Brahman. The Supreme Brahman is Krishna. So he's linked to the Supreme Brahman, and Sukha Makshayam Ashnute. In this way, enjoying unbreakable happiness. There's no such happiness here. The pleasure, as we know, is fleeting. It comes, you anticipate it, you plan for it, you have to pay for it, you get it, you come, and then it's over. And then you have to work more and get more money and pay, That's the problem. That's why I said it's temporary. Now, why is it the source of all misery? Because it brings you back again to another material body. Because whenever you enjoy anything sensual in this world, it plants a desire to seed in your heart. Let's do it again. I always say the example of when I was a kid, I became a total addict of chocolate kisses. Do they still have those? They still have those, right? I mean, my mother would take me to the supermarket. I was only interested in one thing: where were the chocolate kisses? So if I had died, I would come back to have some more chocolate kisses, because that's the only one. So Krishna consciousness means to sublimate. This is a beautiful word. It's a verb. To sublimate your desires. You can like chocolate kisses, but, no chocolate. We'll make them out of carob, carob sweets. You can do that in the kitchen. And you offer them to Krishna for his pleasure. And then, at least I haven't seen it yet. He hasn't eaten all the offerings. He can see he can eat them by just looking at it. And so then it comes off now it's prasadam. So you take the tamarind kisses, and what do we have? Let's call Sandesh and Burfi, okay? Milk sweets. We have some very skillful milk sweet cooks here. And you relish it. You say, "Oh, this is so sweet. It's so nice." When it's offered to Krishna, you remember, and it's a spiritual experience. It doesn't bring you back. It takes you to the spiritual world. So prasadam, chanting Hare Krishna, and eating prasadam, that's basically the essence of the whole process. So it's getting late, and we only have time for one little poem. And then we can adjourn and prepare for a beautiful artik, and we'll see Srimati Radharani. Don't forget this mudra. It's called Abhay Dan Mudra, the gift of fearlessness. Yes, don't worry, fearlessness, Abhay Dan. Okay, so one little poem. Uradi Kutamuradi Bangam. This is a Sanskrit, a little more complicated than these verses. Uradi Kutamuradi Bangam, Napadadadikidanola Satangam, Yuvati Badayat Madanatangam, Panamatayam, and the Tatikitadangam. His flute emanates entrancing sounds for the cowherd girls whose love abounds for the clever cloud-complexioned lord who's dancing upon the Kalindi shore. Kalindi is another name for the Yamuna, which we sang at the beginning. Thank you all very much for coming. These Taco Tuesdays are keeping me going. And we'll reassemble tomorrow at the same time for those who can make it. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.